007 First Light is the first James Bond game we have gotten in 14 years, and dare I say, it is arguably the best James Bond experience of all time, point blank. IO Interactive, when they announced that they had gotten the license to make a Bond game, I knew they were the perfect developer for this game simply because of their hit franchise, the Hitman series. And James Bond First Light is unquestionably the best that it's ever been, and they were the right developers. So let's get right into the meat and potatoes of it. First Light is IO Interactive's original take on an origin story for James Bond. While there are a lot of nuances that follow the actual source material, such as the scar and things of that nature, the overall experience is a fresh take from a different experience. You play a 26-year-old James Bond, fresh recruited into MI6, and you have to earn the badge 007. The story itself is absolutely fantastic front to back. It is a great story of 007 coming to his own and becoming the title agent that we all know and love. Everything from his wit, his dialogue, his demeanor is all on point. And yes, he is a womanizer for all those complaining that the game is woke. James Bond is a womanizer in this game as he is in the source material. He is true to form. And all of this comes together because of how good not only the main actor who portrays James Bond, but also the actors across the board. Every single actor in this game delivers a top tier performance across the board, whether it's Moneypenny, whether it's M, whether it's Greenaway, and even the side characters like Lenny Kravitz's performance as Balma, all of which is on point, and just they deliver such a great experience from front to back. Everything about the story is on point. You could even make a case that First Light is one of the best stories ever told for the James Bond universe. That's how good they have delivered on all fronts. Now, that being said, does the game actually play? Well, I played the game on PC on max settings, and the game is absolutely gorgeous. The environments are amazing. There are a lot of detail, lots of NPCs on screen. They have done a fantastic job. You can clearly see the engine that is used in the Hitman games being on display here. Obviously, they've made tweaks, but overall, from a presentation standpoint, the graphics, the detail, all of which is on point and runs really, really well. And of course, on performance side of things, it ran really well for me for the most part. I only experienced one bug with the game where I couldn't progress and I had to close the game and start over. And there were a couple of moments, 2 or 3, where the game froze for a second while it loaded something. But aside from that, the performance was really, really good. And I think I encountered maybe a couple of times where the AI was a little shaky in terms of how they were. One instance I seen, they were just 2 AI enemies were just walking into a closed door for some odd reason. So there was a couple instances where things, performance-wise were affected or broke the immersion, if you say. But throughout my 16-hour playthrough, it only happened a handful of times and didn't ruin the experience any way, shape, or form. So how does 007 First Light actually play? Well, if you're expecting a Hitman game in 007 form, you are going to be disappointed. While the Hitman DNA is here in some instances with the sandboxes and how you have the choice to go about doing things, this is not a Hitman game. This plays more in line like an Uncharted, like a cinematic linear experience. You're not going to have the deep sandboxes that you do get in the Hitman series. Yes, there are missions where you are put in a sandbox and you have options on how you go about your business, but they're nowhere near the level of depth that you would find in a Hitman game. The sandboxes themselves are still designed in a manner where they are linear because they want to have this to be a linear cinematic experience. Now, that being said, if you're going into this game expecting a game more in line with the Uncharteds of the world, then 007 First Light absolutely knocks it out of the park in all of those aspects. From the stereotypical intro that you would get seen in like a movies. This is present. To the musical score, this is present. To the acting, the writing, all of which is there. And one of the best parts about my journey through 007 First Light is all the little nuanced Easter eggs that they threw in. Through the tutorial section, you get to drive an Aston Martin Vanquish. Well, that's a nod to one of the movies. Another nod is when you get into Q Labs, you'll find an assortment of items that, if you recall throughout the movies, Bond has interacted with throughout the movies as well. So they do a good job of sprinkling in all the nuances. But when it comes to the gameplay of 007, the main thing you're going to be doing is being stealth, moving around the environments, melee combat, and shooting. The good news is all of these things are on point. When you're being stealth, you have access to Bond's plethora of gadgets to help you maneuver the environments, and these things help you feel like you're James Bond. Melee combat is very, very good. If you are familiar with the Batman Arkham games, you're gonna like the melee combat in this game, as the melee combat is really on point with how it feels, how you can interact with the environment during melee combat, how you can grab an enemy, throw them to another enemy, grab an enemy, throw them off the bridge, pick up items that are randomly spread out to throw it at an enemy. And all of this you can combine with your gadgets to, maybe you want to put a smoke grenade, maybe you want to blind them, things of that nature, all of which come together. And then when stealth doesn't work, you have gunplay. Now, the gunplay in 007 First Light is the best gunplay I have seen from IO Interactive. To anyone who's played the Hitman games, one of the criticisms about the Hitman games is shooting the guns never felt great. They weren't bad, but they never felt great. In First Light, shooting the guns feels fantastic. Every gun felt great to shoot, and it was great. And I love the fact that you can't just sit behind a corner like you would Uncharted or a game like Gears of War and just expel all your ammo, killing all the enemies before you progress forward. That's not how this game works. This game, ammo is scarce on purpose. It is done so on purpose because, just like the source material, Bond often has to improvise as he runs out of ammo. You are meant to run out of ammo. You are meant to disarm enemies and take their weapons. You are meant to improvise and blend your shooting with melee combat or gadgets to help you get around environments and pick up other weapons. This is how it is. Furthermore, when you shoot, you could shoot a guy in the leg to stun them in order to approach. You could shoot the gun out of their hand to disarm them. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can go about it. There's a lot of freedom within the game's combat that lets you feel like you're James Bond. And of course, when you increase the difficulty of the game, this only pushes it even further, as the game will not pull any punches. I played the game on the normal difficulty, and I did die a handful of times, as the game can be challenging at times. But it was never overwhelming, nor it wasn't fair, and of course you had the option to make the difficulty easier if you feel it's too hard. Now, that being said, there is a couple of gameplay things that I want to talk about. First and foremost, 007 First Light does feature QTE events during cutscenes. However, you do have the option to turn those off and have them done automatically, so you can just enjoy the cinematography. That's what I did. The other issue when it comes to gameplay is, in my opinion, the driving. The driving in Bond is probably the weakest aspect of the game across the board. In my opinion, the driving, I had two issues with the driving sequences in James Bond. Number one, it always felt like you were on rails. Like you didn't really have any freedom whatsoever on what route to take or how to do it. I guess they were trying to go for a set pieces, but overall, I felt like the driving felt too much on rails. The second issue with driving comes in the form of it doesn't give you a good sense of speed. There are instances where you are performing high-speed chases in vehicles, and you just never feel like you're going fast. You feel like you're going slow, like it's the slowest high-speed chase you've ever been in. So when it comes to the driving, that was the one gameplay element of 007 where, it wasn't great. It's not a highlight. It's not something to brag about. It's just there. And, hopefully when they do make the sequel to this game that they refine it, give you more freedom on how you drive the vehicles, but also manage to give you a better sense of speed. so that when you're doing a high-speed chase, it really feels like you're doing a high-speed chase. Aside from that, I didn't have any other issues with James Bond as a whole. I loved my time with the game. And even after you finish the campaign, you have access to tac sims. Tac sims are basically, think of it like Metal Gear Solid VR missions, or same thing with the Hitman games, where you are able to just drop into a sandbox with objectives and challenges. And as you complete them, you unlock new challenges, new cosmetics, things of that nature. Now, what I do like about this aspect of the game is that it allows room for them to add more. Upon completing the game, there will be a prompt on your screen if you're connected to the internet saying, hey, we got this new tac sim in the works that's going to come soon. I don't want to say what it is for spoiler reasons, but there are already other things being planned for that tax simulator, so they can add more. Now, I think it would be really cool if they added a tax simulation where you have to take down Agent 47. I think that would be really cool. So there is room for replayability. Is it as replayable as, say, a Hitman game? No, it's not. World of Assassinations is definitely more replayable than First Light. But there is replayable aspects to the game for you to revisit. And the story itself, as I stated, there are some areas of sandbox where you can decide to do things differently or challenge yourself if you wanted to do like a complete stealth run without being detected. But overall, I love my time with James Bond First Light. It is quite frankly my favorite game of the year so far. I am a big James Bond fan. And this game, once I rolled the credits, it hits all the notes of a James Bond game. And arguably the best James Bond game of all time. I love this game. It is comfortably in a Game of the Year conversations for me. I'm giving 007 First Light a 9.5 out of 10. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.